Aye.
Short Bus Debate Club. It's a bus rolling.
I can get on board. Hello, I'm Darren Jolly.
It's time to get this short bus started. So let's roll and on with the show. Welcome to the second half of the censorship movies fucking thing. This is Brian Courtney. That guy over there is Darren Jolly.
Good morning, short bus.
Dude, that was loud as fuck.
It was supposed to be.
Yeah, I get it. But I just don't know what it's going to look like on the...
Well, it's not going to be as bad as the first 3 minutes were from the last ones. Yeah, I stopped jerking off, dude. I don't want it to keep pounding on the... I don't want it to keep... You know?
I tried to fuck with it after it had already been posted. I figured I'd pull it down and put another one up if I could put some filters on it.
Nothing. Yeah.
I couldn't find the right filter to do what I needed it to do. Anyway, so we're going to talk about censorship and entertainment. You know, I didn't realize that they made a movie, Fahrenheit 451, in 1966.
Yeah, it sucked.
Well, the new one wasn't fucking good. I mean, it's about burning paper, and that showed them fucking throwing servers and shit on the fire.
What was the name? The guy that directed that first one actually is a really good director. What was it? What was the...
I don't know.
Truffaut, I think, maybe. Okay, we're talking about Fahrenheit 451, Fahrenheit blah blah blah
1966.
Yeah, you can't stop me, Francois Truffaut.
Boom! Nicely done. Way to pick out the director of a shit movie, and it's shit according to you, not me, because I haven't seen it.
It's okay, you know. I mean, but it's 1966 goofiness. It follows the book pretty well. I mean, at the end, he's walking along the railroad tracks, and I'm, Tom, Uncle Tom's cabin, and or whatever, you know.
Yeah. Well, because for people that haven't read the book or watched the movie, there are all those people they call eels that memorize certain books so they can basically recite them so that the book stays alive. And maybe along the same lines of the Book of Eli, maybe so that at some point they can recite them so that somebody else can type them up and print them. I don't know.
Well, I mean, but I at least I think part of the reason why I like Fahrenheit 451 and the way that they couched it at the end is that was their ontology. Like, because they lived in a world where books were no longer existing, or they were hidden, and then when they found them, they burned them, all the stupid shit, because paper burns at 451 degrees. Right. These people were so devoted to the importance of books that they gave up their whole core being outside of the context of memorizing it, and that's what they became. I dig that shit. Yeah. I mean, that's like honestly, that's like their being. Their ontology is, I am now Charles Dickens.
It is slightly problematic because I mean, it's not like you can go and check out a person at the local library, right? Or do you go on a date and she sits there and talks about the book?
He was sitting across from her and the temperature and blah 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 blah.
In the new one though, there's some kid, I think he's got autism or some shit. He has memorized every book. That's a feat in and of itself. But the first book that he starts talking about is Proust. And that's a big fucking book to memorize. So I thought,
Marcel
that's
Proust,
fucking amazing.
Some light shit, dude.
Right. What was it, 27 volumes or some shit? I mean, it was a big book. Mm-hmm. Even though it came in 27 volumes. Proust considered it one book, as far as I know.
Yeah,
I don't know Marcel Proust.
I'm gonna go with you on that one. You know, I know that in that movie Little Miss Sunshine, that your favorite actor, the Office guy,
he was the literature professor
that had slit his wrists. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But his big thing was, if I remember correctly, like he was a Proust scholar. So that's the tragedy of my existence, that I remember stupid little fucking things like that. So, okay, so I'm gonna list a few books about or movies about the intelligent components that I was talking about. Books that or movies that I think at least give you a good introduction to concepts like whistleblowers, how they manifested historically. It puts them in a specific context. And then there's one TV show that has sort of like an abstract expression on whistleblowers, and it puts it in the context of the technological positions and the roles and responsibilities of people who are working for the media that disclose the information that gets them into trouble for whistleblowers. So, but of course, so the first one is The Post, right? That one was it was a Steven Spielberg movie that came out in 2017. So it's fluff. I mean, but at the same time, it begins with Daniel Ellsberg. He's a journalist who's embedded with people inside of Vietnam. It's 1966, I think. That's where the movie starts. And when he's coming back, he's actually on a plane with Robert McNamara, right? And for some reason, part of the reason why I hate Steven Spielberg is because of, like, I love Amistad as a movie, but that it didn't happen anything like, Matthew McConaughey and all the stupid shit that fucking played out in that. And it's the same thing. So I don't know whether or not anything like this really happened. I mean, that on some level, it's sort of about like what happened inside the Washington Post when they got access to the Pentagon Papers. But, when you've got Meryl Streep and Tom Hanks and, there's the level of bullshit is definitely fucking mounting in that moment. But, McNamara and one of the other main crafters of U.S. foreign policy, I can't remember who it was, they're talking to one another and ask Ellsberg to come and give their opinion on whether or not he thinks the U.S. can win Vietnam or not. And the answer to the question in that moment is absolutely and unequivocally no. But he doesn't give it in like a really pronounced way. McNamara's arguing with the other guy, saying that there's no possibility. The other guy's saying that there's a possibility. They get off the plane. Ellsberg walks by McNamara, who's talking to the press, and McNamara's, of course, saying things are going great in Vietnam, and we're going to be able to get out of there.
So I don't mean to interrupt you, but the Marcel Proust thing, it wasn't 27 volumes; it was 7 volumes. So I just wanted to quickly jump back. And mainly it's because I never saw The Post. But I know that McNamara was in another fucking movie that I saw. I think it was about the Gulf War. And yeah, he was real positive and upbeat in that movie too. And I don't think the movie that I watched was Steven Spielberg. So, Maybe Spielberg got that part of it right. I don't know for sure.
The only other movie that I remember seeing that had McNamara in it myself, personally, well, there's a scene in JFK where they have him like briefly, but was Fog of War the one where he actually it was about his legacy, like what he did in his life. But I don't know whether or not.
Was there one called The General that was loosely based on him?
You mean the weird movie with fucking John Travolta in it and shit like that?
No, that's the General's daughter.
Oh, okay. Penny Benjamin?
And that was John Travolta and Samuel L. Jackson, I think.
Yeah, that I got no idea.
That was a horrible fucking movie. Anyway,
so the newsroom. The reason why, The Post is important because it introduces you to Daniel Ellsberg. It introduces you to the Pentagon Papers. The Pentagon Papers were they were these discussions on what was going on and the failures and the difficulties inside Vietnam while it was being presented to the U.S. population that things kept getting better and we were doing well. And there were suggestions as early as, 58, 59, under Eisenhower, that we had no fucking shot at winning that war, which, considering the way that it had been sold until 75.
Well, and even with all, and I know this doesn't have shit to do with the movie, but it is censorship again because of what they're force feeding us, right?
Yeah.
Hey, we're doing a fucking bang up job over there. But even with all of the fucking tiger tunnels and the guerrilla warfare and all of that shit, the way the Vietnamese beat us was just propaganda, dude. I mean, seriously, they kicked our fucking ass because they were better at propaganda. And what that taught the Pentagon and United States policy in general, I would say, is that from now on, we are going to spit as much propaganda as anybody we're fighting because we're not going to let that shit happen again.
Well, I gotta wonder though, and I don't want to get into a big discussion over like how or why they won, or even more importantly, how or whether it was even possible that we could have won the war, or the conflict, or whatever the fuck you want to fucking call it.
Police action?
The police action, yes, exactly. But it isn't just propaganda. It's that we were never committed to fucking winning, right? I mean, we didn't ever really... I don't think that we
For
ever
not being
really...
committed, we sent a shitload of fucking people over there, dude.
I know, but I mean, still, like, I think sometimes when you... the thing that rings in my head always is that discussion that goes on between Martin Sheen and fucking
In Apocalypse Now.
Who the fuck? Marlon Brando, right?
That's a great fucking movie too.
Well, and when he says at the end, and I know I've said this like 4 times on this show, but when he talks about we went in and we inoculated all the children, and then we came back 2 weeks later and all of their arms had been cut off, I realized at that point that we were not operating on the same level as the Vietnamese with regards to what it was that we were trying to. And the other thing is in relation to that is that I really don't think this is conspiracy anymore. Like, I think that if you just look at what it is that's gone on since Korea, we always have military activity going on somewhere. I mean, Iraq and Afghanistan were going on, and literally, like, Iraq's essentially done. We're still doing all that shit in northern Syria, but it's all only through like covert spaces or private spaces. We don't really have like heavy equipment all over the place, but we pull them out of Afghanistan. 6 months later, we start funneling all that equipment to Ukraine, right? One thing that we're really going to have to keep an eye on is now that Republicans have a weak control of the House of Representatives, the suggestion has been that they're not committed in the same way as the Democrats were to continue to sell hardware over there. But that remains to be seen. If they really, really do stop, then and they put the kibosh on it, and we aren't actively going at somebody for 3 or 4 years, I'll eat my fucking words. I just don't believe it.
I don't either.
We, the conversation between what's his name, Garrison and Mr. X, so Donald Sutherland and Kevin or Tin Cup.
Oh, Kevin Costner.
Kevin Costner, right? So Kevin Costner and Donald Sutherland having that conversation, and he says the bank of such and such was about to go. Oh, you're
talking about in JFK.
In JFK, yeah.
Okay.
He says the bank was about to go under, and what does that bank own? Well, that bank owns Bell helicopters, and then all of a sudden this new helicopter came out. How many helicopters have been shot down since Vietnam started? Over 3,000. General Dynamics, all of the different things that he talks about in that moment, and follow the money. these tendencies. It's not, nothing's ever as simple as what it is that I'm saying, but the fact of the matter is that our welfare state is intimately tied to war.
I agree with you. I'm not saying anything differently. I'm just saying that we did get our ass kicked, and we have changed our policies since the Vietnam War.
But we're still not trying to win them.
Well,
were we trying to win in Afghanistan? We were trying to win in Iraq?
Well, we fucking did some serious shit in Iraq. I mean,
We did in
based
Vietnam,
on
too.
optics, though.
We did in Cambodia. We did in Thailand, you know?
So the first
We did in
time
Laos.
the first time in Iraq, we definitely didn't win, and we probably weren't trying. Now, if you take down the leader of said country, I don't know if you consider that a win or not, but you know, Saddam's gone now, so I think a lot of Americans consider that a win.
Okay, then if that was a win, then why did we stay there for fucking, 18 years after the dude was dead?
Well, because we've got to transition the new policies.
You're saying
and
that to me, and you don't even fucking buy what you're saying.
No, I don't believe it. And we had an entire fucking episode on, war and how we do it to generate money.
Yeah.
I
just don't think winning, and I don't know what winning is anyway, right? But I don't think we succeeded at anything except for getting rid of Osama bin Laden and getting rid of...
No, and there was some weird shit in Vietnam, too. I mean, if you think about Air America and the CIA and what they were doing in fucking Cambodia and Laos, maybe they were just trying to figure out the best way to transport drugs over here. I don't know.
But then that begs the question: are wars just fronts for multiple other political economic activities that are functioning, or power activities that are functioning throughout the globe?
Probably, but I do agree with what Brando said in Apocalypse Now, and if that really happened, that definitely says we're not nearly as dedicated as they are to accomplishing what they want to accomplish.
Fucking hey, dude.
And so depending, because, Martin Sheen, when he's going up the river, he's not supposed to be crossing the border.
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
But...
who said that? What was that?
That was Robert Duvall.
Yeah. I think so.
Duvall, yeah. But all of those guys, so again, depending on how you look at things, so Apocalypse Now, or fucking Hamburger Hill, or Platoon,
I've
or
never seen Hamburger Hill.
Full Metal Jacket, any of those fucking movies, right?
What's the word for today, dude? The word for today is poontang.
They all have certain clearances based on position. And so if this is on a need-to-know basis, then, and I know that the movie isn't necessarily about censorship, but censorship exists in basically everything that we fucking do.
Yeah, of course. So quick. So the Post was important because of Daniel Ellsberg, and was important because that was the way that happened in that moment from like 1966 to 1972. I think it was 71 or 72 was when the papers actually got out, and then shout out to he's dead now, but he was a senator from Alaska. His name was Mike Gravel, and he took the Pentagon because he was so keyed up on, like, he just thought that Congress was like ignoring this gigantic disclosure of how much of a failure the Vietnam War was. He actually read the Pentagon Papers out loud, kind of like a Mr. Smith Goes to Washington thing, because he wanted, if it gets into the congressional records, you can't make it go away at that point in time. So it was super fucking awesome. He actually ran for president in 2020, and then he died the year after that. He was not trying to win president. He was just trying to make sure that we kept talking about anti-war stuff. Mike Gravel was a really one of the really good last senators that we had on the planet.
I don't want to sidetrack us too much, and I think that it's cool that he read that into the congressional record and that it can't disappear. But there's a sad thing, and that is that most people don't know how to get to a Senate record or a House record or either of them, and they don't know how to find documents or anything else. And I'm not saying that we're so fucking smart, but I'm just wondering how many people actually read that transcript because of the fact that it was now in the congressional record.
Well, I mean, obviously this is a quality and not quantity question. As long as it's there, if somebody wants to get at it, they can get at it. And so many people now that do write about those kinds of things have cited it and pulled those clips into their digital spaces so that people can click. Like, obviously, most people, not that we're so smart, maybe that they're just so fucking lazy or stupid,
Or both.
Yeah. But ultimately, there are a lot of people that have done things through the acts that he did. As soon as that stuff digitized, they've made it to where all you got to do is point and click now, motherfuckers. So obviously the other ones in relation to that, Citizen 4, because you have the NSA thing where he sat there, he being Edward Snowden, another guy that for whatever reason I always forget his name, he disclosed all the information with regards to the structures of the NSA intelligence gathering mechanisms online, like Brian was talking about last time, the extraction of metadata and the construction of spaces to where they can literally go back to deeper archives through the metadata and actually get to the hard copies of what it is that the people are actually saying, and the more specific actual concrete things that were happening. So he Citizen 4 is a really good version of that. Fifth Estate, like when I watched it, I will say one thing, like I really, really liked the fucking beginning of it, because they go, like I said, we were talking about the Egypt thing, so it starts with, they start with language, written, cuneiform, then they go to, they actually show Martin Luther's theses being pounded to the door, and then the emergence of printing press, and then moving printing press, the telegraph, typewriters, mass media, radio, TV and film, computers, the internet, satellites, all that kind of shit. The way that I thought they presented at the beginning of the film was really fucking cool. But to understand that people don't want to blow the whistle because they think they're going to end up in fucking jail forever. So Assange created that space so that they could do that. Now, having said that, what's the name of the girl that was the 22-year-old private that used the CD that said it
Wasn't it a dude?
Well, Daniel was a dude then, but went through a gender reassignment.
Oh.
So,
okay, sorry, I didn't realize that
okay,
that occurred. And I know we can't dead name people because it's just bad news.
Can we have that war on a different day with people?
Yeah. I like the Fifth Estate.
Chelsea Manning is what her name is.
I thought it was a good movie.
What I didn't like at the end, though, was that they were trying to suggest that everything that he did was as a megalomaniac. I mean, he's smart. He's going to be arrogant. I don't have a problem with that. Like, if you're intelligent, especially if you do what he did, you created a pretty incredible space that changed the face of. I mean, like you said the other day, he's not a journalist. Well, I mean, I dispute that like wholeheartedly.
Well, okay, so I would consider him a journalist in the same vein that I would consider the dipshit on Yahoo that's just copying a bunch of stuff from Reuters or the fucking AP and calling himself a journalist. The reason I would say that Assange is not a journalist is because he was more worried about getting the information out than vetting it, which makes him at least as bad as whatever country he was trying. And the reason that I say this is because when he does that, then he puts lives at stake. Like, printing the British Parliament's fucking families' addresses and shit on there. Well, Those guys had families. I mean, and then, just letting all of these fucking documents fly.
The blonde, low-level intelligence lady who played that role in Fifth Estate. But she had that buddy in Libya.
Oh,
who
yeah.
I know
who you're talking about.
But they got him over the border. But presumably, for the one person that they saved there,
another 6
400 or 500
died.
might 400 or 500 might have died. Yeah,
I just meant in Libya, but yeah.
Yeah. But I don't think so. Why does that make him not a journalist?
Because a journalist would typically vet information to make sure that it's right. They would not, and I say generally, they would not put someone at risk in order to publish a story. Like the Edward Snowden thing. Those guys fucking sat in that hotel for a fucking week. And they were vetting all of the
distinction there is very important because he and Snowden said it clearly. He says, I'm giving this to you all. I'm going to let you determine what's appropriate to post, but I want you to understand that what you're saying is true. That, like, I'm not giving you this so that you can put other people's lives that are in the field in danger. I'm giving it to you so that you can demonstrate to the U.S. public that the State Department is working with Verizon, that the State Department is working with AT&T, or Yahoo, or, like you said, all these other things.
So that is why I would say that he isn't a journalist. I would say he's a tech guy with at least initially good intentions, and it may have been good intentions all the way through, and he just either wasn't thinking about all of it, or the other possibility is that he cared more about WikiLeaks than he did everything else. And, because now if he publishes all, whatever, 95,000 pages or whatever it was, if he publishes all of them, then WikiLeaks starts getting a lot more donations. Now all of a sudden they're number one on the fucking search engines or whatever.
I think you're
happens.
bypassing the argument that he did make. And whether or not you agree with the argument, he did make a very specific argument, right? He said, I am a conduit for information to flow through so that other people can do the interpretation. I am not the person. So if you want to say he's not a journalist because a journalist filters it through a lens, like that's an argument that's sort of interesting, but there's still a point that he made to where, like Snowden's argument is, I don't want to filter it through my lens, so I'm going to hand it off to somebody else and let them make the determination.
I get it.
And they can put it there.
Yeah.
But Snowden said, I don't want to allow my bias to enter into anything. I create the space for the submissions, right? The only thing that we do is we verify what's been submitted to us to make sure that the information is true, and then we publish it as is, right? Now, the only problem that I really have, and of course I'm gonna, people are gonna hate me for this, but I think that whether you like it or not, you're gonna have to deal with this on the ground at some point in time, and that is that if some people died in the field because of what Julian Assange posted, or what he allowed to be posted on WikiLeaks, what U.S. empire, or what the global political economic empire has done, the amount of blood that it has on its hands.
Well, he said the same thing.
I know, but
Yeah.
I think it's important that whether you like that argument or not, it needs to be said, because we have a lot of blood on our hands.
No,
dude.
it's not that I'm against.
You just think he's not a
I just think he's not a journalist.
Yeah.
He created a great fucking platform. You are a conduit. That's all you fucking are.
It would have been interesting if so, because like even with the Twitter files, which is where that's where all this stuff ends up right now, is so like I said, like Elon Musk provides a space for them to come in and to make requests with regards to these giant databases to do keyword searches and shit like that. So they do a keyword search on Trump. They do a keyword search on the cunt that was pounding on Matt Taibbi the other day when him and Michael Schellenberg, they're the Twitter Files people that testified in front of Congress, and I can't remember what that hoochie fucking mama. She's the one that was the head of the Democratic National Committee.
Oh,
that had
that's
to
the
step
post,
down.
or that's the post that you showed me the other day.
Yeah, I mean, and when I say cunt, I mean that with a fucking capital C-U-N-T, fucking with an exclamation point. Deborah Wasserman Schultz. And also that other fucking hoe bag, Stacy Plaskett. Stacy Plaskett said, well, these so-called journalists, I mean, she said, I mean, they write, you know, I mean, and it's like you said, if it's through if you're filtering it through the lens, then you can't say they're not journalists at that point in time.
I don't consider most of these people anymore journalists. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, when they started doing the Wednesday's Child back on fucking the local news, you know, I
don't want to get caught up in this.
I understand
because
that.
it's this stupid fucking congresswoman that's saying these people aren't.
All I'm saying is I didn't say these so-called journalists. I'm just saying
I don't care about what you say. I care about people that are sitting in front of Congress when somebody's going and they're doing exactly what you're saying they're doing, right? There's information that's out there. They're doing the searches. They go through the information, they're vetting it, they're looking at it, they're seeing who's involved in what's happening, and then they write things that are newsworthy. And I read a ton of this shit. I think everything that I've read that's come out through the fucking Twitter Files is mostly fucking newsworthy. Fucking Deborah Wasserman Schultz, she's sitting there fucking saying, have you made money off of this work that you're doing? And he said something to the effect, well, because of the amount of pushback that I've gotten, I've lost a lot of money. I've had to hire some people to make sure that the stuff that I'm doing is double vetted. He said, but what system are we living in here? I'm a journalist and I'm not allowed to have financial gain. Do you get bitch? Do you get paid for the fucking work you do when you're fucking doing all this stuff for the DNC and you get fucking hired to go give a fucking talk like fucking, you know, Hillary fucking Rodham cunt bag? And you get paid $750,000 by fucking Goldman Sachs because they're paying you back for the fact that you guys backed them up while your husband was fucking, you know, and you were the Secretary of State and all that fucking shite.
I don't remember journalists ever being a volunteer sort of vocation. Like, I'm gonna do this because, you know,
I will say that there was a time period, though, when, like Walter Cronkite, I think he wanted people to trust him. I think that people that did journalism back then, credibility was a more important thing now. I think we don't even know what fucking credibility looks like in this day and age. So,
no, because, you know, and I always say, well, we can change the channel if we don't like what we see. Mm-hmm. But we have, you know, 500 and some different fucking channels. So lots of people are changing the channel. It might be between, you know, 4 of them. Mm-hmm. But it's the 4 that are right, or it's the 4 that are left. It's not any of them that are in the middle. It's not
whatever the middle
any
means.
Of them. Yeah. Well, no, I know. I'm just. It's not any of them that are from another country. It's not anything that will give someone a better idea of what is going on in any situation or on any topic. So they just listen to fucking idiot with the bow tie, or that fucking other idiot Rachel Maddow.
He doesn't wear a bow tie anymore.
Okay,
and Rachel Maddow's not on MSNBC.
I know, I get it, but I'm just saying those were the 2 that were like super fucking popular when I used to watch the news.
Mm-hmm. You should go check out some of the people online. I know you really like to stay up on things, and it's very important. But as much as you talk about this stuff, there might be some value in it.
Maybe. I don't know. Like I said, it wasn't that it was a lack of journalism that made me quit watching the news. I think that was part of it. Mm-hmm. But the main part was that it just fucking pissed me off.
Well, that's why I go to these other places. They still piss me off, but at least I know that what I'm getting is coming from a place where they're trying to work it out. I'm not saying that it's the right.
No, I'm not saying that I was pissed because they weren't journalists. I'm saying I was pissed because there's just so much shit going on that shouldn't be going on that I am pissed about that.
But that's why I look for other outlets. That's why I think it's important in the world that we live in to look for other outlets.
Okay, that's fair.
The only other thing that I was thinking about with regards to the intelligence stuff was the newsroom, right? Because that gal in the third season, they leak information, but she tells them something that was interesting and important, and that was that they before she was going to talk to him, she made him get an air gap computer, which now, because of technology, like, it's hard because you have to have a computer that's made before a certain time, or you'd have to make the computer yourself, because there's stuff inside of a computer that makes it automatically connect to internet signals now, doesn't it?
Well, no, I mean, yes and no. It's going to ask you if you want to connect, and hopefully whatever fucking Wi-Fi is out there, it's going to request a password. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not automatically going to connect at Best Buy because you don't know the code to get on Best Buy. But what I was saying is that the software is already in the fucking PC to begin with.
So is there such thing as an air gap computer anymore?
Ish. Maybe.
But there's probably ways where they can reach in without, I mean, you would have to do something weird with the technology inside the computer, wouldn't you?
You would probably have to build it yourself, and instead of using something like Apple type software or Microsoft, you'd have to use
something that was an alien language,
a Linux based type software. And then even then, I don't know, because I don't know who they're in bed with. All I know is that they're in bed with a lot of large corporations. And just because that corporation hasn't been listed doesn't mean that they're not in bed.
It's hard to get all day.
It just means that they haven't been found out yet. So it's like, I'm cheating on my girlfriend. She hasn't caught me, but that doesn't mean I'm not fucking another girl.
Yeah, that analogy is just almost perfect right there, dude.
I was trying to simplify things for people. Well, and it worked with the whole bed thing. Yeah, I don't know what you would have to do to be truly air gapped, because the air gap means that it has never touched the outside. And technically, when they're building these things in the factory, they test them. Mm-hmm. So it has touched the outside. Mm-hmm. Now, air gapped could also mean it hasn't touched an outside network other than the testing network. But I would say no, an air gap computer doesn't exist.
Yeah, it seems like, the more I think about it, the way that things like automatically reach in and reach out from that's why I asked the question, because I agree. I don't think that you could probably do it, but I don't know enough about the technology to say one way or another. It just conceptually seems like it would be more problematic now than it was in 2013 or 2012 when that.
Well, like I said,
Season 3 came out.
Samsung, they had all of those TVs that had the fucking spyware on them, or the
built
malware that would fucking turn it into a mic.
Which stands to reason that there would be something like that would put inside anything that was technologically constructed.
Yeah. HP had the one. So just because Samsung and HP were the only ones that were there doesn't mean that it wasn't Dell, it wasn't Apple, it wasn't, Sony.
Yeah, I got
whoever.
You. I'm picking up what you're putting down. I'm reading your mail. I hear you clucking, big chicken.
Yeah. So since we're talking about the computer shit and privacy, I think if you haven't seen 0 Days, you probably should watch it. It's a documentary. It is basically about a 0 day virus, and a 0 day, so a 0 day virus is a virus that hits, and basically it has never been seen before. So it's the day it was born.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
0.
Uh-huh.
And 0 Days talks about a lot of the different 0 day attacks, but the one that it really focuses on is Stuxnet, which Stuxnet was the one that fucking went crazy all over the world.
Is it the Iran one that you were talking about before?
But that one went directly into it was purpose built to find the hardware specific to the uranium enrichment facility in Iran.
Okay. Out there. Stuxnet.
Yeah, Stuxnet. But then there's also a movie called Stuxnet.
Also a documentary, or was it? Okay.
Yeah.
But that'll give you at least an idea of how those go after specific technological devices and how difficult it can be at the beginning when it's like just developing.
And I kind of follow your entire thing. Like, you're talking about gamma function and all of this shit with regard to like COVID and how they're basically developing these viruses. And I talked to my doctor a couple of different times about it. And, we were talking, and basically the way that it sounded, the way that it was attacking certain people and killing them and certain people and making them really sick, it sounded to me like it was
engineered people.
The same way that they engineer a computer virus to where it can hunt down a certain type of machine or whatever. So it sounded like it was fucking built to hunt people that may have bad lungs or diabetes or whatever.
So like they actually had a couple episodes in Fringe where they talked about ideas like that, orchestrating. Of course it's because it's Fringe and it's like supposed to be their goofy, stuff. It's much more directed. Like this goes after brown-haired people. This goes after Jewish people. This goes after black people, brown people, Asian people, whatever.
It could have been any. I mean, they could if.
You'd have to find a specific DNA thing or whatever.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that's the case. I am a fucking whack nut job, but
when you see something where there's certain tendencies that are happening, you at least have to think about and ask the question, why is this tendency? Is the tendency random? If it happens over and over again, like the poker thing, like it becomes less and less likely that it's random at that point in time. It means that there's something that's directing it somehow or another.
Well, and so we know that cyber warfare is something that every country in the world is probably focused on.
Yeah.
But all of the other stuff, nukes, the UN frowns upon them. Chemical warfare, they frown on that. Biological warfare, while this would be biological warfare, it's not something that's fucking thrown up in the air to where it's necessarily going to target an entire city. So I wouldn't doubt that fucking at least all of the big countries that we're probably worried about or would be doing something like that.
Well, especially because, in this, the follow the money, Darren, the cynic, and here's like a conspiracy theory thing that started that maybe you don't have to take this seriously, but if you take the market concept seriously, you can at least see that cyber warfare exists. You're going to have firms that work on developing certain strategies to protect people in relation to that, which means that so there was this company that was called Promise. There's Inslaw it was developed out of something with regards to a company called Inslaw. Promise was a software that it was used to organize certain things on certain databases, but it was structured with backdoors so that and it started being used by the California State Police Department, but it was something that worked in a lot of different contexts. So a bunch of different intelligence communities started to buy it. The suggestion when Bin Laden sent that message to Air Force One, when they talked about it on that original Fox report, it was somehow tied to this Promise software stuff.
So
right?
They found it by going through the back door of the comms.
But the suggestion was that we actually sold that to the Israelis and the Israelis sold it to them or somehow or another. But it was something that was intentionally being done anyway, because even though they were able to reverse it onto those spaces, that was allowing us to see what they were doing in all these other spaces. So, but again, that's probably too oversimplified. But even still, when you're going to have, like, if Promise isn't right, or if it's too oversimplified relative to how these things are playing out, no matter what, private industry is going to be what's going to proliferate the position in relation to developing technology in relation to these warfare techniques. So people are going to be buying and selling shit throughout the globe to develop and improve them and to construct them for different contexts and intelligence spaces and state spaces and private information spaces and so on and so forth.
Absolutely. I mean, well, and Kaspersky was a big player in that thing.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't actually do anything wrong, or there was no proof of it, and they got shut down. I mean, I went to several trade shows where Kaspersky wasn't there. I mean, there was a sign that said Kaspersky, but they weren't there because basically all of their big customers said, fuck you. We heard about what you're doing. You're spying for the Russians. So
it's like the pot calling the kettle black, I gotta tell you.
No shit, dude. All right, so what's next on your list?
Okay, so the other thing that I have to talk about, and first before I, so like, is the Cradle Rock stuff, right? So to sort of reintroduce it, I brought up Diego Rivera last time. I said that the reason why they destroyed the original mural, so the original mural was called Man at the Crossroads, right? And the idea is that you have this individual at the center who represents like humankind, right? And there's science and all these different iterations, like sort of like reaching out around him. And then on one side they have this expression of capitalism, on the other side they have this expression of socialism. So people came up to it, and you got motherfucking Lenin sitting there, you got fucking Marx sitting over there, and you got revolutionaries up on the right, you know, they're like, this is a fucking communist propaganda thing, you gotta get this out of here, you know. And first off, like, not J.D. Rockefeller Jr., but it was one of the other Rockefeller kids, said, Diego, don't you think you can make this a little happier? Can't you make it a little bit more joyous? He's like, dude, this is about man at the crossroads of history, because this is it's ridden with conflict. It's complex, you know. There is a space on it where you have, like I said, where you have decadent bourgeois individuals partying, and then there's a syphilis thing that's right above them, right? But the thing where he ended up redoing it with the teetotaler, who's drinking in the picture because he's making fun of him being a prig, you know, for all of his life. The one that he redoes in Mexico City. So it does have the syphilis image where he's talking total shit about the Rockefeller family for allowing him to construct this gigantic mural. It's a 3-part mural, you know, with the socialism, the man, and then capitalism, the man, and socialism. But then they fucking literally go and like demo it, dude, with fucking sledgehammers and rip the whole fucking thing down. And then he goes to Mexico City and redoes it. And the new one is called, he gives it a different name, Man, Controller of the Universe, right? Because he's fucking pissed off at these motherfuckers who destroyed his other mural. And he's got all those people in it, but he's got the teetotaler there and then the syphilis above his head to kind of give the fucking Rockefellers the fuck you, you fucking motherfucker, right? But he has an integral role in Cradle Rock, and there's a lot of sort of like discussions going back and forth. So it's like 1937, 1936. The WP, the workers' programs, are all being developed. There's this one program that was created to construct theater spaces throughout the United States so that people that were working class would be able to have access to theater, right? You could go see Faustus, you could go see fucking Shakespeare. This was happening, but meanwhile, the House of Un-American Activities Committee started to do their shit, and there was a lot of things in the literature in relation to the development of this program that was, you know, pro-union, that was workers' rights, you know, using social goods as a way of moving history forward and not markets, you know. So because you have this parallel disposition with regards to the House of American Activities Committee, they're starting to call these people in, right? And Joan Cusack, who works as one of the people at the WPA, like getting people in and helping to get people that are working in the industry, whether you're a stagehand or an actor or a singer or whatever it is that you do in the arts, they'd help to facilitate getting them jobs and other things that were related to the WPA. But because they were focusing on this specific idea, they were demonstrating what was going on there, especially because some of the stuff we were talking about last time when I was talking about Marcuse, where art is sort of this thing that's when it's functioning properly, its nose is at the it's like the comet that's like pushing us through history, right? But there are some pseudo dispositions, in it. So they're trying to sort of like illustrate how some of the tensions that were existing inside of this space were creating, this real space for real art to exist during this time period. But there was this huge pushback where Joan Cusack worked there, but she talked about everybody being a red there, and you're all a bunch of fucking commies. So she gets called to House American Activities Committee. She names names. She talks shit about everybody she fucking works with, and the same thing happens with Bill Murray, who Jack Black is this person that he does a vaudeville act, right? And he's trying to teach Jack Black how to fucking keep his mouth from fucking moving when he's talking with this fucking his dummy, but Jack Black can't do it, and his gay boyfriend can't do it either. So Bill Murray's like, and they're trying to imitate Bill Murray's act. He's like, this is my act, this is I worked hard on it, this is my capitalism and my Ayn Rand and blah 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 blah, and you can't steal from me like that, right? So he ends up going and fucking talking shit about everybody too, and they get blackballed because they name names and all that stuff. And in the last scene, it comes out where Bill Murray goes and does his last vaudeville act, and he's going to give up after this. He starts to talk like a revolutionary through his dummy, because his activity being pro-capitalist and against socialism was an act because he was afraid to not have a job. So he starts singing the Internationale and knows the whole fucking thing, and then he walks off, he sets his fucking dummy down, and he leaves forever, right? And there's this whole symbolic thing where Jack Black and his boyfriend put the dummy in a fake coffin, and they carry it down the street, and there's all these people that are walking behind him that are artists that are like following him. It's just a symbolic thing, right? But meanwhile, Hank Azaria is this writer, right? And he comes up with this play, and it's pro-union and the capitalist fat cats, all this, the way that they couched everything back then. I mean, just total. Both sides were just, as a Marxist, I'm going to say both sides were total rhetorical bullshit. It's a lot more complicated than the way that they're playing it out. Unions are not perfect. Unions need to be a lot more developed and a lot more complicated. But the way that they're being presented in there, it was hyper pro-union. So after Joan Cusack and Bill Murray and all these people come back, they start slashing the money that's going to this this program that's allowing for these plays to be put on. And Hank Azaria's play was about to be put on, but they slashed all the fucking money. So the union said, you can't do it because we can't get paid right. And everybody said, so basically it gets shut down entirely. They have fucking cops that are standing in front of the theater, not allowing them to get in or get out, right? So all of the actors go in and they sneak in and they figure out a place where they can do it. But all the people that are pro-union are like, you actors can't do it, you musicians can't play the music in it. They all go down the street to this other place, and they do it anyway. And this lady, Emily Watson, who had never acted before in her life, she facilitated this space to where Orson Welles is the one that's directing the play. He sees her and he wants her to do it, but she fucking sucks, right? It didn't work out really well, but they had to shut everything down. So everybody that was in the play, whether they're playing the music, most everybody that was, they go to see, and Hank Azaria is just going to do it on this stage where he sort of like reads what's happening, right? But somehow or another through this moment, he's singing, because the vocal part begins with Emily Watson. He's singing, and then Emily Watson comes in and just starts singing, right? And then like sort of John Turturro's got this really big role in it, like this makeshift moment where it all starts happening sort of like in the audience, where they start acting it out, like in this theater, and it's as a reaction to the unions telling them they can't do it. It's a reaction to the state trying to stop them from doing it. To where it's just like a moment of pure art in this moment of time. Really, it comes off very cool and it's very fucking interesting. But it was still this moment in time where
it's also kind of a big fuck you to everybody, right?
Everybody.
If everybody is participating
and
then,
trying to stop it, yes.
Yeah.
They're saying fuck you to the union. They're saying fuck you to the state. And I think that this is the thing where, if we're going to move into the next moment in time in a concrete and meaningful way, the way that unions have functioned since the 1970s is incredibly reactionary. I don't need somebody to pay me fucking money for work that I want to get paid for what I'm doing, and I want to be the best at what I'm doing, and I want to compete with other people to be the best at what I'm doing. I don't want people to be able to be disenfranchised in relation to how they exist in their labor position, but that doesn't mean that we lock ourselves into a 1972 production strategy because we're afraid of change. Like, change is one of those things that has to happen. It has to keep happening. It's just that labor needs to activate itself in a way where it's not... we need to have a 21st century labor consciousness that is not like the AFL-CIO stuff. It has to be something new, something different, something that, like Star Trek, you know, like what I was talking about the other day. And I don't know what the fuck that means. I don't know what the fuck that looks like, you know. I mean, what I do know is that I don't want banks like fucking Silicon Valley Bank to get in fucking $1 billion bailouts while everybody else is fucking hand to mouth, you know. This is a fucking problem. We need to have a system where we have health insurance for people, where dental insurance, where, you know, vision insurance, where people are eating food and they're doing okay, but they're contributing. They're not just getting fucking shit handed out to them. I don't want a fucking world where we're just getting shit fucking handed out to them. I want people to feel compelled to contribute to a society where the betterment of the society is the function of what it is that we're doing socially, collectively, as individuals and in the society as a whole. I know, that's a fucking total pie in the sky thing. But I do not want shit to be, like you said, you got the picture. The point at the end was that it was a fuck you to all of them. Because it's about, and it was awesome. The way that the fucking show came off was awesome as a result. And it was because it was sort of impromptu, and because they all just were committed to the act of art in the first place.
Well, I think that says another thing.
What's that?
I think that it says a couple of things. One, the Diego's mural, you can't do it again. And two,
yes,
even in the theater, you know, everything comes off without a hitch, and the fucking audience is participating, and everybody's not singing and saying kumbaya, but there's this fucking great vibe, right?
Yes, an energy, an excitement, a vibration.
You can't redo that.
No, you can't.
You never, ever, no matter how much you fucking try, and you can plant people in the audience, and you can do all of this shit, and it's never going to come off as good as that initial time. And I'm not saying that you can't have stuff redone. I'm saying that there are certain moments in history, whether it be the mural or the theater or whatever, where it was so fucking good. It was just brilliant. You're never going to touch it again, no matter how hard you try.
There's at the bottom of what you're saying right there is the tension between the concept of when a thing becomes a thing and when it becomes institutionalized, right? When it becomes institutionalized, it loses some of that. It's synthetic. It loses some of that magic, you know, and the moment disappears. You know,
Yeah.
You're trying to fucking cling to it, right? So there's this scene, like, okay, so of course you got Susan Tim Robbins wrote and directed he wrote it with three other people, but it's Tim Robbins and Susan. Of course, I mean, it's going to be, you know, it's going to be either Warren Beatty, Susan Sarandon, or Tim Robbins. I mean, those are the big fucking socialists that are going to be not just saying pro-socialism. They're going to be saying, okay, so what was happening? What was good? What was bad? You know, how do we make something better, right? So, but Susan Sarandon's character, so she's an Italian diplomat, right? Comes to the U.S. and she interacts with all these fucking, you know, high corporate spaces, right? And she had been a really good friend with Diego Rivera earlier on in both of their careers, all right? So they kicked Diego Rivera out. They give him a fucking $21,000 check. They said, get the fuck out of here. We're done with you. We're paid you your commission. You got no more fucking claim to anything here. You don't own it. We own it, right?
21 grand in the fucking 30s is badass.
Yeah, well, Diego was not. So this is important, right? So Susan Sarandon sees him and goes and engages him. And because she's an Italian diplomat, and this is 1936, and what's his name? Donald Trump is the president of it's Italy at that point in time. What the fuck? I can't remember the fascist guy's name.
Benito Mussolini.
Yeah, Benito Mussolini, right, is in charge. Yeah, Donald Trump is in charge there, and so Diego Rivera says, I can't believe that you try to talk to me. You think you know something about art. You know, you're an apologist for a fascist. She said, fuck you, motherfucker. You just got a $21,000 check from fucking Rockefeller. She says, you don't get a fucking stand in front of me. And she's not engaging with the fact that she's an apologist for a fascist, right? But he is also not engaging with the fact that he by being commissioned by the people that he's being commissioned by, he's very similar to, you know. So there's a huge point. And at the end, so John Cusack plays the Rockefeller guy in it, right? And he's talking to all these guys who were the pillars of corporate society at that time. And they're all at this costume event, right? And the costume event, they're all dressed up like French people from like the Louis the 16th.
You can eat cake.
Like, yeah, dude, like it's so fucking in your face, you know, like it's such an over the top. Just made me laugh. I'm like, you could have brought it down a little bit so it wasn't so fucking in your face, but they're clearly demonstrating it. But the Cusack says to this other guy, he says artists are just prostitutes too, you know. He says, we just have to make sure we can let them deal with color. We can let them deal with form. We just cannot allow social discussions to enter into the artistic spaces any longer. So they're doing that at the same time that there's this discussion that's going on between fascism and capitalism, you know, and all of the internal contradictions and the hypocrisies in relation to people that are trying to get their ethical high ground is pushing out on all these different spaces, except for in the moment where that Cradle Will Rock, which is the name of the play, the Cradle Will Rock play gets done. The one time that it gets done, like you said, because that's the one time that it gets done. It gets done in a certain way that just captures the beauty of real art when real art plays off, and also when it demonstrates real concrete internal contradictions in society that are not solving themselves in the moment, except for in the tensions, the conflict that's occurring between all of these different actors and sides and spaces. Really, like, it's been a long time since I'd watched that movie. I'm glad I watched it today before we fucking did this, because it's a good way of saying that was what was going on then, and we need to, you know, otherwise we're just repeating the same bullshit that they did. Like, if we keep sucking Bernie's dick, you know, then those people are just saying, let's go back to 1936. And we are never going to go back. And we don't want to go back to 1936. We need something better. We need something new. We need something that pushes in a better, more dynamic direction.
It just makes me wonder, and I know it's not a documentary type movie. It's one of those that's supposed to be loosely based on history, whatever. Yeah. But it makes me wonder if, you know, Tim Robbins or his wife or anybody, you know, talk to somebody that was in that theater that night. You know, did they do interviews? Did they know what happened? I mean, because the idea is fucking brilliant. Mm-hmm. It's great. But it's also Hollywood.
Yeah.
You know,
I'd love to sit down and have a coffee with them and ask them. It'd be a good question.
For all we know, they did the play. You know, that part's true, but it absolutely fucking sucked, and people were throwing tomatoes, and they said, fuck you, and then they walked out, and they still said fuck you to the union and fuck you to the state, but...
It didn't have that same...
That vibe.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So when you told me about the Diego mural, it reminded me of Silicon Valley, and I'm sorry, I gotta mention it because it's
really fucking funny, dude.
It makes me laugh so hard. So in Silicon Valley, TJ Fox plays this dude named R.O.L.L, who is the owner of an incubator, and an incubator is where tech companies go to try to end up getting money. But he takes a cut if they do end up making it, because it's his house,
Does
his
he have,
incubator.
like, special lights?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
To help the company grow.
Yeah.
Well, Pied Piper ends up getting big. They get some money. So they go to buy a Pied Piper logo. Well, R.O.L.L wants to put some edge on it. So he goes and finds this tagger named Chewy Ramirez. And Chewy says he wants stocks, and because he know another tagger that did something for Facebook and he made a bunch of money. And R.O.L.L says, well, I'll give you 10 grand. You know, just paint it on the garage door. So he paints this itty bitty logo, but he thinks that this guy Dinesh is Mexican because he told him that he was, because he was in a Mexican neighborhood and didn't want to get jumped or whatever. So he says, yeah, he's Mexican. So he paints a itty bitty logo, and he paints Dinesh in like this fucking full-on Aztec king type of regalia, but fucking the Statue of Liberty. R.O.L.L complains and says, you know, that's a little too much. And besides, I lied to you. He's not Mexican. He's Pakistani. So he changed it. And he changed him back to a Pakistani. But then he painted R.O.L.L's face on the Statue of Liberty. And little kids were walking by and shit. They had to keep the garage door open so that nobody could see it. But they finally ended up having to take it down. They said, you know what? It's yours. You take it. So he took it, and he ended up selling it to this other large tech company. But it made me laugh so fucking... I'm fucking crying.
Yeah, Diego. I mean, dude, if that's not a direct fucking, like, homage to the butt fucking of capitalism, you know, as it relates to art, and directly connecting to that moment in time, I don't know what is, dude.
You know, the show is at least produced by Mike Judge.
Yeah, he's a shit-talking motherfucker. And
he definitely is, and he knows a lot about art.
And history.
So it wouldn't surprise me if he was saying...
Dude, it looks so much like that event. I mean, it just fucking... I mean, and his name is Chewy Ramirez. I mean, my God, dude. I mean, that's like... that's a Mike Judge thing to do, where you just take this fucking stereotypical thing to graft onto this other thing, and he's fucking butt fucking him, and then he puts his face on it. That's fucking...
Dude, it's so funny.
That's the syphilis thing on fucking steroids,
the face that he painted on there, I mean, he looks... It's hilarious. If you guys have not seen Silicon Valley, the entire fucking series is hilarious. But for Diego's sake and Chewy's, watch.
For Diego and Chewy's sake,
watch.
For Frida Kahlo's sake,
watch. Season 1, episode 5 of Silicon Valley.
That was what it was.
Yeah. But. So, you also wanted to talk about the newsroom, too. And at least I thought you had mentioned
it. Well,
it.
the only reason why I brought it up was because of the air gap computer thing. But no matter what, when there's all kinds of good discussions about censorship and that, he comes out and makes the comment about the Tea Party. His boss tells... Well, his boss tells him to shut up. Jane Fonda tells Sam Waterston, if he doesn't back the fuck off because I get kicked off this fucking committee, I need to have access to that committee. Otherwise, I can't do all the shit that I need to do throughout the course of the year as a person who owns a huge fucking media company. I will do what she calls create a context. The context was that she would get his ass fired for doing things that were detrimental to the company. She paid all kinds of money to the shitty ass,
the gossip rag that she also owned,
to go after him. And in the meantime, her son paid the NSA to go and start observing the things that Will was doing.
Yeah, no, they were just listening to his phone calls.
Phone, yeah. So he called up old girl and said, even though I'm stoned tonight, I love you.
Well, and that was funny, is that he's the one that fucked himself there, because he's the one that called the chick from the gossip rag. So that wasn't even the NSA. I mean, the NSA was listening.
He didn't call the gossip one that night. No, he did not. He called her yes, he did. You're fucking wrong. You're fucking wrong.
I'll bet you $250.
You lose. He didn't call her.
He did.
No, they gave her that. He called up the British girl that he fucking loved. You're wrong. You are absolutely incorrect.
No.
I have the movie, or I have the show, so we'll look at it when we're done here. We'll look at it, and you'll be like, "Oh, dude, now I owe you more money."
Actually, no, that won't be happening, but that's fine. Okay, so we are over an hour again. Is there any? I know you watched Pump Up the Volume.
That was the only thing I was going to say. I love that fucking movie. I mean, and especially since maybe in terms of closure with regards to what we're doing here, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm hyper concerned that at some point in time they'll start bottling up what it is that all these people are doing right here. Because what we're doing right here is ostensibly free, and we do not have an FCC coming in from the side right now telling us that we can't say these things, that I can't say fuck you, fuck your fucking mother, I hope you get your fucking ass raped by a fucking, donkey or something like that. I can still do that right now, and nobody's telling me that I can't do that. So, I mean, the irony is that on a certain level, we are doing things in a very free way in this space right now.
Yes, we absolutely are. And all of the internet service providers are trying to figure out a way to limit that more than the government is, because they want to make money off of it too. Because in theory, Google, Yahoo, whoever, or whichever company, they think that content on their service or that runs through their service, they should get a piece of it. And they're pushing for that shit really hard, and that's one of the things that fucking Jane Fonda was pushing for on the newsroom, is because of that content that, she wants a piece of that. Not just a piece of what she owns as the Atlanta's cable news, but a piece of what's coming through the ISP. So that's what a lot of them are pushing for. So you're right. We may end up having to pay a bunch of money and fines to the FCC or to an ISP because, now Congress has passed the law that says we've got to cut it.
Shut us down. Yeah. And then we'd have to become a pirate radio station like what was his name? Happy Harry Hard-On. That's right. And he went to Hubert Humphrey High School. That's right. HHH, right?
And what was because somebody else did pirate radio, but they were on a fucking old oil tanker or something. I just remember Philip Seymour Hoffman was in it.
Was it like a Radio Free America kind of thing or something? Or
dude, I can't remember the fucking name of it. But they were out on this boat and they were doing a radio program, but since they were out in international waters, the FCC couldn't fuck with them, but they kept having to update their antenna because signals were degrading and they were getting listeners here and not here and whatever.
They did it all on AM probably because you needed that wider frequency.
Right.
Okay.
I just can't remember what the fucking name of the movie was. Pirate Radio? No, that wasn't the maybe. I don't know.
We'll find it. We'll bring it up next time. Do we know what we're going to talk about on the next one?
Fuck, I didn't know what I was going to talk about on this one.
That's a no. Okay.
No.
We'll come with it.
We'll
come up with it later.
We'll figure it out.
So in the meantime, we're in all of your heads, standing here, naked, staring back at you, wearing only a cock ring.
All right. Thanks for the pump up the volume reference again. 720-334-ROLL 7655 or shortbusdebateclub at yahoo.com.
Somebody talk to us. We're lonely.
Roll, bitches, roll.
Later.